In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in black and white emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our world.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of America in Black and White, where we are coloring conversations on the canvas of America. Tonight, our special guest is Mr. Derrick C. Turner. Derrick currently serves as Assistant City Manager for the city of Tucker, Georgia, where he provides leadership across operations, strategic initiatives, and municipal management support to sustain and advance the city's services and community goals. He joined the city of Tucker in 2024, bringing with him extensive public sector experience and a strong track record of municipal leadership. Raised in Tennessee, Mr. Turner holds a BA in Business Administration from Tennessee State University and an MBA from Keller Graduate School of Management. His achievements include induction into the Marquee Who's Who Registry 2022, Certified Public Management Manager designation in 2023, and Distinguished Budget Awards for both Lawrenceville in 2019 and Tucker in 2025. He also is a certified local government finance officer and a member of Leadership DeKalb's 2026 class. Turner's leadership philosophy centers on collaboration, transparency, and citizen-focused services. He champions inclusive partnerships, operational excellence, and strategic planning that supports fiscal sustainability and community responsiveness. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring to the show Mr. Derrick Turner. Hello,
Good
sir.
evening. Good evening. How are you doing today?
I'm doing just excellent. How are you?
Oh, no complaints my way. I'm fantastic. It's a beautiful day.
Welcome to the show. And is there
Thank
anything
you.
you'd like to add to your bio before we get into the show?
No, I think that was great. I think you summed up my last 10 years of life very well.
Well, that's a, that's a joy, but also I'm sure that that's a very positive, and prosperous thing for the people in which you serve.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Um, I want to start out with your foundations and philosophy. And can you tell us what inspired your journey into public service and municipal leadership?
Yeah, I worked in the private sector for the first half of my career, and when you're in contract third-party services, everything's at a whim. There's not really the sense of service that you're offering to somebody. It's just about a dollar. But being in public service, whenever everything is about the citizens, everything's about the participants, the residents, the people that you're serving, there's just a little better sense of pride. There's a better sense of just giving to people. So you want to feel that value of your work whenever you go to work any day. For me, and just so I think whenever I looked at that, that was a way that I could really have that sense of pride about the value I was offering the community and the workforce.
So as doing that, and had you always been just gifted into doing this kind of work, or was there something that brought you to that point?
And well, I guess I would like to think that I've always just been gifted to do it, but but I think at least with my training, looking at my degrees are in management. I think that with the things I've been able to learn throughout the years, I think it's an accumulation of all the things that I have gone through that I've been able to learn how to be a good leader and good manager within the public sector, and that's an always refining skill set that you have. You never quite reach perfection on it, but you're always striving for it. So I think every year you just have to reevaluate yourself and see what are your deficiencies, what are the things you want to work on, and really set those goals to push yourself.
So, how did your upbringing in Tennessee shape your leadership style?
And I think for growing up in Tennessee, when you're growing up in rural Tennessee, Martin, Tennessee specifically, then when you're in those rural environments, you don't have as many things to just distract you and or keep you entertained. So a lot of your living and a lot of your existence is about how do you find ways to do those things, and how do you find ways to get better, how do you find ways to learn. So I think with that, that gave me that mentality that I can go figure out how to do anything. My dad always told me if somebody else had to learn how to do it, you can learn how to do it. And so I think that kind of mentality with my parents really driving us to really push ourselves, learn as much as we could. They were strong in education, but also the practicality of being able to do things and learning how to do things. So I think with that upbringing, that really helped to guide me. And plus, with my parents, both my parents grew up on farms, so really just that you have that hustle mentality that if you don't get out and work hard at it, you're not eating.
Right. Right.
So I think that translated for me in how I approached everything.
So, from as a cultural perspective, what did that lean to your foundation? From your growing perspective to where you are now.
I think I think from what I grew up in and how that sort of lends to the profession and things I've done is number one, the ability to code switch. You have that, you have that opportunity that growing up in a predominantly white town and white area, then there's things that you just have to tolerate. There's sometimes things that you're going to go through. Then to go to an HBCU was a complete flip. So then I got a chance to really see the other side of it, and then of course move into the Atlanta area, where there is a good variety of people. So then that gave me the opportunity to learn how to interact with all types of people, and I think that's of high value in the workplace, because being able to relate to people, being able to understand people when they're telling you things about either their life or things they're going through, is really important. So I think that upbringing and everywhere that it took me just really helped me to be able to have a well-rounded view of the world.
Oh, wow. Um, what core values guide your work as assistant city manager?
Yeah, I think number one is integrity. I think to be in public service, if integrity isn't your number one, then you need to get out of public service. It's hard to be in this field and not have integrity to make sure that you're doing the right things all the time. Because again, you're dealing with taxpayer funds. You do see a lot of people that go to prison over things they've done within public service. You may have that in the private sector too, but it's a different thing, and sometimes it's not frowned upon within the private sector. But you get to the public sector and you're going through those, you can go to jail for real. So you better have integrity. Number one. Number two, just valuing people. It's important just to understand that especially in my role, uh, there's people that are doing the work. They're doing the core of the work every day, and without them, then they don't need me. So I mean, it's really important to always value the people that are working for you, and just understanding that without them there is no me in this situation. And I've been a staffer on that side too, so I understand that you're doing a lot of work, and sometimes it goes unnoticed. So giving value to people is something that's huge to me as well. And I think those are kind of the big two things that I really look at when I try to walk in the door every day is, am I doing the right things? And also, am I showing value for the people that are doing the work?
Well, also I understand that, and that's I got to say that you deserve an applause for that, because I know that working in public life is really one of those things that's a stickler that unbeknownst to a lot of people, sometimes they make mistakes and not even realize that they made them. So do you feel like for the time that you've been and in the public sector and for the places that you've been, that by the time you got here to Tucker, that it put you in perfect position to do more than lead, but to set that example?
I think so. I think just with the years of experience, the people I've been able to work under that have been great and done great things in their careers. I was been fortunate to work in places where you can go to places and sometimes people want to hold you back, or they want to limit what you can do because that can be intimidating sometimes. But I think with the people that I was able to work for at a variety of these places, they really gave me the freedom to explore, to learn, to not just be in whatever that one specific role I was in, and only stick to that. So I think that it's really helped with preparing me as I walk into this. That now I'm yes, a leader for Tucker, but there's a lot of people that reach out to me as far as mentorship, or hey, how do I get into city management, or what did you do? So I think there's a lot of opportunity that I come into now with the things that I've done in my past that show, I think, a good roadmap to how you can get to city management. So I do try to mentor any and all people that want to listen. I'm happy to give advice, the best advice I can, to how to get into the public sector and/or to get into city management.
So, how do you define municipal excellence in today's civic landscape?
Yeah, it is, and it is a changing environment nowadays. It is very different than what it was even 10 years ago. But I think when you look at municipal excellence, it's really about the wheels of government grinding quietly. I think it's important for us that we're not on the news all the time. There's not some news story coming out about, oh well, City of Tucker did this, or you know Derrick did this, or the city manager did this. You want to operate in silence. I think this is kind of the age that we are. That you could talk about some of the positive things that you've done, but I think it's important to operate in silence, and you can highlight things you have done, but also too, on the flip side of that, it is a society now that you really need to get in front of, acknowledging when you have made mistakes. Even more importantly, just because if you're kind of hiding your mistakes or not acknowledging that you've made a mistake, then people just view that as absolute distrust. So I think that's sort of the world that we live in right now, and it is an ever-changing world, just with our overall landscape, that you're consistently looking at how you need to approach these things and how you need to really act in these environments.
So, what does transparency mean to you in local government?
I think transparency is important in local gov. Primarily, you want people to feel comfortable about the things that you're doing, whether it be from the elected officials, whether it be from the staff, whether it be just from the general public. You want people to understand what you're doing, and you want to try to make sure to educate them as much as you can. It's not just a thing to say that you're going to put something on a website and hope that everybody understands what you put out there. That's not always the case. A lot of things, yes, you can do that, but when you get to a point to where you're putting some type of design plan on there, not everybody reads design. People don't know that. They'll just look at it and think, oh, that's the elevation of that hill right there. I can tell by the lines. You want to make sure within transparency that it's not only transparent to where you're giving information, but you want to give information people can digest. So I think that's a little bit more, for me, transparency, that added step of making sure that people understand the information that you are putting out there, not just throwing information because you're like, hey, we put everything out there on the website. We're transparent. We're transparent, and people look at it and say, I have no clue as to what this means. It has to be something that's meaningful for people, or else it's really not transparency at that point.
So, when the people of Tucker, especially the people that are watching this show tonight, what should they know that you're bringing to that city and to that job?
I think for what I'm bringing, what people should know is, I think number one, bringing steady leadership, bringing innovative ideas. I think nothing's off limits to me. I don't believe in the theory of we've done that before, or this is the way we've always done it. With it being a newer city, then it is a younger city at almost 10 years, but it's still one of those things to where you can always explore of how you can do things better, to make things better for everybody, whether it be the citizens or the staff included. So we want to make sure that we're doing that. So I think bringing that leadership, bringing innovative ideas, and a willingness to try new things are some of the big keys that I've had success with in the past. I think whenever, even especially looking at when I was at Franklin County, I was county manager there. That's a rural county here in Georgia, up near Lake Hartwell. But being there, there's a lot of things they hadn't tried. And I tell people that can be okay. Just because, and even if you have tried it before and it failed, that doesn't mean that it's the wrong idea. It just might mean that it's not the right time. So I think with a lot of ideas, we have to just be open to consider, what does this mean? What does this look like for us? How could we do this? And what would that do for us?
So let's move over to Tucker's vision and strategy. First of all, can you tell us what drew you to the city of Tucker in 2024?
Yeah, and I think with coming to the city of Tucker, with it being a newer city, was a huge attraction to me because, again, with it coming up on 10 years next year, being a younger city, one of the exciting things about that, and I've worked at older cities, worked at some of the older counties. You're very structured at that point in time sometimes. So they've kind of already done all the legwork to figure out the how tos, versus when you have opportunity to go to newer cities, and or newer places, you can kind of set the framework of how things are going to look, how they're going to run, and really be a little bit even more so creative, because there's no track record of, well, this is the policy we put in place and we've been doing this for the last 75 years. Why change it? There's not going to be any of that conversation. I mean, maybe you've been doing this for 2 or 3 years at this point when you're a young city like this, but that just means there's opportunity for you to review those policies and review those methods. So I think that was a very, very big driver for me, is just the opportunity to set those standards and to really be a part of something that's going to grow, and hopefully down the road, maybe one day long from now when I'm retired, they look back and say, hey, this is something he put in place, and he did a good job when he was here. We remember him. And I think that's a big thing for me, especially with looking at any municipality, is there some positive impact that I can bring to them, that's going to make it worthwhile for not only me being there, but them having me too. They have to. It has to be a mutual relationship of the desire for me to be there and them want me to be there. So I look at those type of opportunities, and that was a huge driver for me.
So, what are Tucker's top strategic priorities right now?
I think, in my view, the top priorities really look at our park system, because that's our most forward-facing area of the city. That's where every citizen has opportunity to interact with our parks through recreation or through events. I think the second thing is really looking at deferred maintenance. So we want to really bring up the upgrades. With being a newer city, we of course are taking on things that the county had prior, and we want to really just bring them up to a certain standard. So things like our road improvements, building out trails, and making it a more accessible city, so more walkable on the overall scale. And I think a third thing for us would be really the building of community. So we have, of course, a downtown and Main Street. And with that, we have a town green that's actually going to have a ribbon cutting here in about another week or so, on the 14th. So really with things like that, we want to bring together the community. So I think those are really the big three priorities as of right this second.
So, how do you approach aligning city operations with council goals?
And I think a lot of that is really just taking the time to really listen and goal setting. Whenever council comes up with what their goals are, it's really on the staff to figure out the how to. Council is really just there to come up with whatever they believe that goal to be. When you're in these type of roles, the goal for us is to say, well, they want us to build more parks. Okay, well, that means we need to look at land acquisition. It means we look at a plan for how that land that could be used. So things of that nature. So I think when you're flowing through from a council to us, then it's really about us trying to use the expertise and using also examples from other cities, that can be a benefit too. Is we are newer, but there are a lot of older cities that have done some of these things. So I think when you're looking at those type of goals, there's typically some type of example that you can look at a different type of city to say, well, how did they get from point A to B? And we can really work to emulate that in our own way. So I think that's really important. So building those type of relationships with other cities to where we can very easily go through and contact people and say, well, even though you did this 15 years ago, what was the mentality behind it? How did you do it? So I think those are some of the big ways to really translate council goals downward.
And so when you think of those goals and you think of the things that are helping this young city to flourish, um, how do you guys plan the strategies and the trajectories of the many projects that you may have in place and how you want to implement them in that growth process? How do you guys do that?
Yeah, so we actually have two council strategic planning sessions a year. So with that, we usually meet sometime in the late spring and then again in the early fall ish. And with those strategic planning sessions, that's an opportunity for us to really, number one, look at setting goals. So whatever goal setting activities we need to do of the upcoming year, but also revisiting old goals to see where we stand with those. Because you want to, of course, measure things to find out, did you meet the goal? Did you not meet the goal? Or what may have happened in between. But that's a big key of it. Now, those are your big sort of cornerstones to how you're setting goals. But the in between time is you still have a lot of interaction to where we're still going to have a lot of meetings. It might not be a quorum to where everybody's in the room all at the same time, but we may more so kind of pick people individually or even small groups just to talk about those goals to understand what we're trying to get to and how do things that are coming up within the course of the fiscal year, how does that then impact those goals and does it align with them? Does it not? So that can be a factor in saying, do we need to continue doing this? Do we need to pivot and move to something else? So you're pretty consistently looking at how you revisit goals, but the cornerstone of that is those strategic planning sessions.
Mm. What does fiscal sustainability look like for Tucker?
Yeah, I think with that, that's just really about making sure we're smart about how we are utilizing that money. Whenever you have taxpayer funds, then you can't just simply spend all the money and then go back to the taxpayers and say we need some more money. Sorry, you know, they usually they usually don't like that a whole lot in a lot of scenarios. But typically with that, then you're just kind of looking at can we set realistic expectations about what's budgeted? Are these necessities? Are we looking at doing all the things that still accomplish the goals that we're setting going into the year? Are there carryovers that we need to really rethink? Are there things that are pricing themselves out of our market to where maybe we need to think about, can we even do this now? Maybe if the inflation is increased to where it doubles the cost of goods, do we need that, or can we find different sources? So I think whenever you're looking at the sustainability, it's about being able to really focus in on how do we get the most bang for the buck, I guess is the simplest way of saying it. How are we maximizing those dollars and how do we ensure that we're always looking at ways to do that for the people and not just simply go by the first thing we see just because it's there. We need to have comparisons and we put things in place to make sure that we are getting the right amount of quotes and things like that that we do need.
So when you talk about that sustainability, and I know that making sure that you're being strategic in all the processes that you guys have, um, what are some of the variables that you guys use in order to come up with the planning and the strategy to keep that sustainability in place? What are some of those things?
Yeah, I think when you're looking at the variables to that, you really are monitoring all levels of government to see what the interactions are with that. Of course, we're in the government shutdown now, so nothing to monitor this second. But you still want to see sort of what the trends are through your federal, through your state governments. Looking at things like your consumer indexes. What are the trends as far as purchasing power out in the world? Is that increasing? What's the value of the dollar? Is that trending up or is it trending down? So I think a lot of those available metrics that we do have out there are the ways that you can do that. That are sort of but they are the variables because of course they change with every quarter and sometimes more frequent with a few of them. But those trends start to tell you a lot of the story. Even like when we had the kind of chip crisis within cars. You're looking at that, then that's an indicator that at that point inflation is going to be pretty high, and you have to do the best you can to try to really push yourself beyond those points and figure out how does that affect us. But I think when you're looking at all those various metrics, I think it does tell you a story of at least what the trending direction is. Is not an end all be all, and it won't tell you every single thing that you need to know. So you have to interpret it to a degree, but it is a good way of at least having a starting point to say, do we need to kind of pause and look at things, or are we okay?
Can you share how Tucker earned its first Distinguished Budget Award?
Yeah, that is 100% the staff getting that done. Of really just looking at how we could do this and how we can do it efficiently. Working together with finance, with a few of our other departments, we're able to go through and really put that together. Fortunately for me too, for that particular award, it goes through the Government Finance Officers Association, and I used to be a budget reviewer, uh, participating with them to issue those awards. So I have experience pretty heavily in what they're looking for, how to get to that, and I think with being able to do that, we were all able to pull together to really put together a great budget document that really showed what Tucker's doing, and it's not just about necessarily just the numbers when you're looking at those type of documents, but that budget document tells a story. Is telling you, well, what about your city or your county is going on? What are the things you're doing? And it really goes through and takes you sort of on a journey with the start of talking about your mayor and then your elected officials to what is it that the city is about, tell about the city, the goals of the city. Then you go through those numbers, and that helps to tell a story too, with a little bit of communication on that. So a lot of hard work. It is hard work, especially I believe when you're getting your first one with that award. But really all your subsequent are pretty easy because you've kind of got the template to it, you've got the format. But it is a heavy lift, I believe, to get that first one. And doing the same thing in Lawrenceville is a lot of work to be able to get that very first one because of the volume of things you're putting together versus the subsequent years when you're really just exchanging a little bit of information, but you have the relative template. But I think our staff did a great job of being able to really work hard to put that together, get it submitted, and you submit your paperwork and everything, and it's a point to where you kind of have to cross your fingers and just make sure you've checked off everything that you need to check off. And once you get to the reviewers at that point, then it's in their hands, and they go through and review it pretty thoroughly to make sure you've hit all the points that you're supposed to hit within that document. And we were fortunate enough to have that award arrive at our doorstep.
So why should your constituents trust you to lead them to this next level of excellence that you want to take them to?
I believe proven. I've done it before, and I will continue to do it. I'm very tireless when it comes to trying to reach operational excellence. I don't believe in just settling for the where we are. I always want to push us to be better every year, and even with myself, just from a manager's perspective, I want to push myself to be better really every day. I'm always going to be my toughest critic whenever it comes to how we operate and the things that I impact. But I think it's extremely important to make sure that, for everybody's sake, not only the residents, but the staff as well, that I'm always going through and trying to find ways to make us better, try to find things that are going to give us opportunities to succeed and put everybody in the best position to succeed. So I think whenever anybody looks at my track record or looks at the things that I work on and how I look at those things that I work on, I think that really shows and points to just the character of me as a professional and how I'm going to approach every project and really work as hard as I can to get those completed.
Let's move over to the development and infrastructure of your city. What major development projects are underway in Tucker?
Yeah, we've got a lot of projects actually. So I think the biggest project that we have right this second is our Tuckertown Green. So that's actually going to have a ribbon cutting coming up November 14th. So that's been a long project for us, but something that's really great. It's located right by our main street. And it's a great opportunity for us to really bring people together and have, you want to, I think to me, as cities and also as counties, you want to have those places where people can gather. They can say, I'm going to this event because I'm going to this place. And I think with us opening that, that's going to be fantastic for us because it has aspects that are there for kids to be able to play. Of course, we have a stage there, so concerts can be there. We have the opportunity to where if a family just wanted to hang out for the day and kind of walk around and be at the park for a little while and then go to Main Street and go to a restaurant, you have opportunity to be able to do that. So I think that's really our biggest and most upcoming project that we have going right now. Other projects that aren't quite as sexy as that are sort of working on our dams, our Lake Erin Dam and our Johns Homestead Dam, of completely renovating those dams. Those can be safety related type of projects, but I think those are huge as far as being able to really have the infrastructure in place that the city needs. And I think probably the last big project that we're continuing to work on and will be ongoing is our trails system. So that's going to build the interconnectivity for the city to where the hope would be, you can go kind of park somewhere and you can go walk for miles if you want to.
Like the comment trail.
Yeah, exactly. So it's going to produce a lot of connectivity to where absolutely, if you want to go walk for miles that day, then have at it. And you have opportunities where you can just leave your car and enjoy a beautiful day like we had today. So I think those are important things to be able to put in place and have. So I think those are the biggest projects that we have going on right now.
Let me ask you this because, and I know some people may think I'm crazy when I ask you this question, because I think that's really important when you talk about the connectivity, like you're talking. Would you guys trail be one that would actually connect more to like inside the Atlanta, like the Beltline does around the city of Atlanta? Is it going to be something like that you guys are trying to do?
It is something very similar like that. So this will actually still have connectivity to go through Clarkston and connect to the Stone Mountain Trail as well.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, so yes, so relatively similar to that, but also having that high level of connectivity throughout the city. So I think as your primary, you're looking at that connectivity that you have within the city, and then secondarily, then you can kind of expand yourself a little bit further beyond the city limits. Even if you wanted one of those days where I've decided I'm going to walk for 10, 12 hours kind of day, you could technically do that. You could technically do that if you wanted to do that. But I think the connectivity is really important and just really have an opportunity for people to enjoy that outside space. Because I think the big thing you see, especially within the Americas, a lot of time is you don't always see sidewalks.
Yes.
And that ability for people to walk. So whenever you're kind of walking around and you maybe have some stretch of sidewalk as you're going through certain areas, and then it kind of cuts off and you have to walk on the road, which of course is dangerous. You don't want to have to do it if you don't have to do it. So that eliminates a lot of that need and gives people opportunity to walk safely is the big key to places that they want to be.
How do you balance growth with preserving Tucker's local character?
Yeah, I think with that, it's really about setting those standards when you have ordinances in place that are going to be a little bit limiting and just not allow every single thing to come into the city as your starting point with that. But when you do have opportunities with developers, it's about finding the right things. Just because somebody says they want to come build some apartments in your city or county doesn't mean you need to do it. So I think you really have to have a good key in to what you want to be in your city and how you want the city to look. And I think we do have a really good, distinct downtown type of area. So as people do eventually want to do more building in the downtown area, there are those standards that you want to have in place before you just say yes. You don't want to just, and you also just don't want to say yes because people said they needed some help. You want to make sure you want to make sure that it is the right thing for you, for your city, that it's not just fulfilling some need that somebody said they had. Because yes, it could be a need, but you just have to make sure that the character areas of the city. Because if you have you see some things when you go to certain cities that it looks odd. It looks out of place when you go there, from some buildings just because somebody said yes. They put in an application and they just voted, yeah, let's do it. We need some housing. We got to have it, or we got to have this, that, the other. So sometimes you get to where you go certain places and things look out of place. But I think when you have a plan and then you put those measures in place to really follow that plan, and you're not accepting of everything, it makes your life a lot easier.
Tell us about Tucker. Who is Tucker? Tell us, give us some idea as to what the city of Tucker is, and its characteristics and what people should look forward to when they come to Tucker.
Yeah, I think Tucker's got a lot of identity to it. When you come through Tucker, you go through your downtown, and your downtown is kind of that sort of it's kind of that old feel to going on a main street. That when you turn on the main street, you've got your shops, you've got your restaurants. You've kind of got that opportunity that I'm going to spend some time in this area.
Mhm.
And this is kind of where I need to hang out. So I think that's one character area of that. Of course, with our town green being built right there too, right now, then now you have a place where you can go and I can just kick back, relax. I can go to an event. I can go to a concert. So I can kind of live, work, and play right in that downtown area. I think when you go to to some of your other areas within Tucker, you still have things like North Lake Mall that are there. So you still have that level of commerce when you get to that La Vista Road type of area that's much busier, a little bit more cosmopolitan. So I think, as you're going through Tucker, you have these large pockets that really are different. But it's sort of Tucker can be a place that meets the needs of all when you're going through. And I think whenever you're looking at that in that kind of aspect, because of course a mall in that kind of environment is very different from being in a downtown Main Street where it's a little bit slower, a little bit quieter. But I think Tucker sort of has everything that you could need and that you could want. And so I think when people come to Tucker, we've got everything you need. You don't have to go elsewhere. You can just be in a part of Tucker and go to a different part of Tucker and just get all the things that you've been looking for.
Are you guys in DeKalb County or Gwinnett County?
So we as a city are in DeKalb County.
Okay.
Yeah, we are in DeKalb County. Yeah.
What role does infrastructure play in your long-term planning?
Yeah, I think infrastructure is always in long-term planning because infrastructure will be there forever, and you need it forever, essentially. So I think when you're looking at infrastructure, really understanding what your inventory is, number one, but then how do you make plans to replace that inventory? Because of course, everything goes bad at some point. Whether it be infrastructure, roads, whether it be piping, whether it be even your body, all things go bad at some point in time. So really having a plan of really documenting what our inventory of infrastructure is and having a plan of how do we replace that. So like your roads generally are replaced on a 10-year period. Can be a little shorter for certain roads if there's more volume, but probably just in theory, you could say every 10 years you repave a road. So really having a list of those roads and repairing them as the worst to the best. And then you just cycle through that over the course of that 10-year period. But same thing as you're getting to other infrastructure, like your stormwater. We're actually doing an inventory of all of our stormwater right now. So you really want to understand what you have, because of course that's a lot of underground items that you can't just see. You don't want to get to a point of failure because that's when you have, you see things about sinkholes in certain areas, or you see something about, a road is flooded. That means something's wrong with your overall infrastructure. So as we evaluate all these things, really the next step from there is coming up with a plan of how do you replace them and make sure that they're functioning the way they should forever.
Now, that sounds like a lot of tedious work for one man. That is a lot of work. How do you actually balance all of those different things like that? Because that's a lot to keep track of.
Well, I think number one is a whole lot of meetings. A lot of you get fed. I get fed a lot of information, but I think you have to really know how to sift through the information. I think at this point, career-wise, I kind of know how to sift through information that's given to me, and I know what I need to hang on to from what's being said that I need to probably revisit or need to ask more questions about, versus some things are just sort of your everyday, we're going to do this and it's going to be done, and you kind of let that go. So I think when you balance between all of those, it's really about having a lot of communication with your departments to make sure that that you're clear about what the expectations are, but then there's also clear communication coming back to be able to understand, are we meeting goals, and are we doing the right things and getting the things done that are supposed to be done. But I think it's one of those, you take as many notes as you need to. I don't knock anybody that's got pages of notes. I'm not a notorious note taker all the time, but I can usually just pick those things that I know I need to remember and are of high importance. And you can always understand the value to those, because if somebody came and said, well, there's a sinkhole, okay, I know that's a high priority item that I need to think about, versus somebody saying we're fixing a pothole.
Right.
Yes, they both can be treacherous in certain ways, but pothole is going to be a pretty simple fix, versus if I'm looking at a sinkhole that could have some damaging ramifications to people and or their vehicles, so on and so forth. So really looking at what the level of urgency is within anything that is told to you is important, and you kind of sift through that to see what do you need to hang on to and what can you move on from.
How do you ensure equitable development across neighborhoods?
I think a lot of it is opportunity. You try to make sure that you're equitable as much as you possibly can. The challenge I think that can be with that in general is a developer goes and buys a piece of land. They might want to develop in a certain area, but that doesn't mean that we could at that point say, well, we need somebody over at this area to balance this out. Because we can't, of course, force private industry to go do those things. But I think when we are looking at those type of situations, the big key in that is, okay, well, we've got people that are going over here to build all the time. Why are they not going to this area to build? And there can be conclusions to that, I believe, because it could be that, well, it's all built out. There's no land available. So if you're landlocked, okay, well, nobody's going to build there, of course. But it could also be some areas that the city needs to build up. So it could be that the roads are dangerous, there's no lights, it feels unsafe. Those are things that we can work to improve. So I think you have to really find the reason as to why maybe another area is not developing as much in some of those situations. When you look at like building towards a mall, that wouldn't be something that's uncommon to say we want to build more restaurants by a mall. Or those type of shopping centers, versus when you look then at another area that's a neighborhood, then you look at some of those factors to say, is there a limiting factor as to why people don't really ask us about this, or is it an area that we've had issues with before?
What's your approach to zoning and land use in growing a city?
I think it's about understanding your character area and making sure that you really put things in place that are going to follow that. Whenever you're looking at that, just like if you have a historic downtown, you don't want to allow people to put some type of high rise that looks modern. That wouldn't fit. It would look completely out of place. So I think when you're looking at your overall zoning, it's really about fitting your character identities, but also too understanding where are the places that we identify for growth. A lot of planning and zoning comes from plans. So there's usually studies and plans that occur that are going to kind of help tell you to a pretty good degree, these are the ideal areas where you should build, or maybe a place is overpopulated and you want to alleviate that with some other areas having some level of growth. But I think that really drives a lot of your zoning and how you're going to then maintain an area. But I think those are the big drivers to it. When you're looking at that growth, of course, you don't want to overpopulate a place, and you don't want to have an overpopulated huge subdivision of 500 homes where you only have maybe a 2-lane road that people can't get in and out, or it creates huge traffic backlogs. So I think really a lot of when you're looking at that is I think it comes down to a pretty simple question of, does this fit? When you look at zoning, and how does that still also fit within the character identity of the city?
So, as we're talking about developing infrastructure, can you tell us how does bringing in new companies, a lot of small businesses
Mm.
and people into the city or pockets of the city? How does that work? How is that in your planning and development?
Yeah, I think a lot of that is still again opportunity. Not necessarily something that we can control with absolution, but when you set up essentially, I guess you can kind of call districts or zoning districts. If it is something that's residential, of course, your only anticipation is that you're going to get residential housing in that, and then vice versa. Then talking about when you have districts that are set up for businesses, so you have an identity that you really want to maintain within that. And when you're looking at those business districts, you have a lot of certain areas that you have that your high traffic areas, of course. So like your La Vista Road type of areas that you really want to build within that, and certain stretches like Lawrenceville Highway. So whenever you're really setting up how the zoning is set up, that's what makes it attractive then for a business to come in, because they can simply go there. They don't have to go through and try to rezone an area to be able to build their business. They can simply go there, get their permit or whatever it's going to take for them to start that business, a business license or whatever the case is, to be able to start the business more easily. So when you set up those zones that are attractive to people to just practically walk in the door in some cases, that makes it easy for a business instead of that hefty startup cost. And I think when we've kind of put certain things in certain areas, then you sort of know that's where the businesses are going to be, contrary to where the residential is going to be, and just making sure that they are still attractive areas, that people want to have a business and that they would have opportunities for success.
So, how often or how common is it for you guys to do rezoning? Especially if there's going to be a lot of growth and so forth, or if somebody needs to have something specially rezoned. How often do you guys do that?
I mean, I think that's something we look at fairly often, and of course, somebody can always come to us with those, and that's typically how that would look. There are sometimes the broad thoughts of, do we need to look at an area? Does this actually work? Or are there things other than what we've kind of zoned it for already that we want in that area? But I think a lot of times we do get businesses that do come and look at a special type of zoning for us, and we have processes for that. So I'd probably say relatively frequent that we are looking at these things to try to figure out, okay, well, does this work? And then if they are bringing something to us, just understanding what the business is, number one, and make sure that you are kind of staying on top of that, because you can always have a lot of different businesses that want to come, but there are sometimes certain businesses and industries that you might not necessarily want to be in those areas, because they might not necessarily serve the public good. Like whenever there was that big run on vape shops some years ago, people were changing zoning and just approving nonstop. People were approving those nonstop, and then all of a sudden they realized, oh wow, in this stretch we have like 10 vape shops, all practically within a certain diameter of each other. And so then that kind of sparked a lot of people to take a look at that and say, okay, well, let's press pause on this. Do we need this volume of vape shops? Are vape shops even good for us to have here? What are the dangers? So I think you have to try to stay on top of zoning as much as humanly possible and see, are there things that you would want within your area, and are they serving the public good? It doesn't mean that you can't have things like that, but do you want to sort of restrict those to a certain corner of your city, and not have it as widely available if it is something that you feel like maybe isn't a public good? You don't want to restrict people's ability to earn income, open businesses necessarily, but you do want to make sure that you're being protective of your character areas.
So let's move over to community engagement. How do you build trust with Tucker's residents?
I think a lot of that is the transparency and really giving good information. Whenever you have projects, taking time to explain what those projects are. Like I said, you don't want to just throw some designs on a screen for somebody to comprehend, but really having open houses to where people can attend those. They can get a chance to understand what that means, what the different aspects of a project are. Those are, I think, hugely important things, and it does build trust, because when you're making those type of efforts, even if you don't get a lot of turnout for some of those, because you're of course not going to get the whole citizenry to come to every open house that you have, but whenever you do at least make those type of offerings consistently, people feel heard, and at least those people that do go to them can always go back and talk to other people and say, hey, I went to this open house. This is what they're talking about. This is what it's going to do. This is where it's at. This is the timelines, and what these things mean, because again, people look at certain things and might not comprehend what it is exactly. So there has to be some method of being able to get information out. And I think the more good information you get out, the more people are going to trust you, because now they understand at a level that they sort of see the vision you see, and then you can kind of carry them through that. And when you reach the completion of all those things that you talked about and taught them about, then they're like, oh, yeah, that's exactly what they told me it was going to be. And that's going to help always build trust as you go project to project, and whether it be a big project or a little project.
So, what are some successful community engagement initiatives you've led?
Let me think. I think a little lesser here, just since we have a communications department. But I think historically, things that I've been able to really engage on is, especially going back to my time at Franklin County, were things such as understanding we didn't have a fire training facility that was suitable for people, because we had a volunteer fire department. So things of that nature, and really getting feedback from everybody and bringing people to the table to understand what that is for us, what it's going to do, being able to lower those scores to get better insurance. So that's always an important thing for residents, is whenever you can do anything to lower their insurance ratings and costs. And I think with a specific project like that, then from that point, taking some citizens and also some of the fire to go visit. Actually went and visited City of Atlanta's fire training facility. And at the end of the day, to make it a shorter story, we actually ended up purchasing the same exact fire training facility that the city of Atlanta has.
Oh, wow.
What we have for there. So being able to bring the board of commissioners together, as well as the fire department and some of our citizens that were really looking at this and walking everybody through this. So probably one of the easier projects that I was able to get completed, just because of the community engagement that we had with that, and having an opportunity for everybody to understand what it was going to do for us and how that was going to help us. And just the opportunity that with having a brand new facility like that, you can now have all of our county fire departments, all 7 of them at that point, go through and train in that facility. And it can be available even for other counties that don't have a facility that need to come. So I think when you build that type of level of engagement, to where people are excited about it, it's really easy to get a project done then. Because if they're excited about it and they're happy to do it, then there's not going to be any complaints about the project getting done. You're not going to hear a word. You're simply just going to get that project done. I think another big thing for community engagement, especially harkening back to the time at the county, was we actually held the first county fair that they had in about 40 plus years. I think with bringing that back, because I think that was they actually had the actual fair a few months after I left, but it was something that, of course, I was involved with putting together and getting started. So I think whenever you have that level of engagement, to where people are involved, not only with the organization, but with each other, then I think those are opportunities to where the engagement level, again, nobody's complaining that we had a county fair. Nobody's upset about that. Nobody's upset about the traffic. Nobody's upset about any aspect of that, because it's a great thing for the community. It's something that, as we've relayed what we're trying to do and how we're trying to do this, that you have the buy-in. So I think the big key in overall engagement is the buy-in to everybody and how they are really doing that.
So, how do you incorporate resident feedback into city planning?
Yeah, and I think it is really about taking that feedback of what people do want. Now, it doesn't mean that you can necessarily just absolutely, if somebody said, well, we want something designed in a certain way, that you can just absolutely do that, because some things aren't feasible, of course. But I think it is important to take the feedback, just to understand, especially from the aspect of, are there concerns? It might not be sort of the, well, this is how we have to do it, but it might be like, what's scaring you about this project or this item that we can address. And I think that's really where the feedback comes in handy, because if you can, again, answer those questions of somebody has an issue with how you're going to do a project or what a project is, if you can address those concerns, that's where you get the buy-in, because otherwise they're probably okay with the project, not an issue. But when they have concerns about it and they have some type of fear of, hey, is this going to create more traffic? Is there Is there going to be other issues that are involved with this? Are people going to be able to cross the street because you've widened the road? This, that, and the other, whatever that issue is, if you can address the issue, you could typically get a lot more buy-in from them. So understanding the feedback and what you take away from that, and being direct about what you're looking for when it comes to feedback. Again, you're not going out asking people, well, hey, well, how would you guys design this sidewalk? I mean, there's certain standards, of course, that are there, but more the question of, hey, if we build this sidewalk, are there things that concern you about this? And there can be legit concerns. Is the turning lane not going to be big enough now because we're taking away road for the sidewalk? There can be certain concerns that are there, but there could also be additional answers to how that. It could be simply, well, we're actually going to curve the sidewalk to where there's a deceleration lane at that turn. There could still be some answers that are there, but if you don't know that negative aspect of the feedback, then you don't get the opportunity to answer that, and then they just have to wait until they see it. But by then, they've probably already had enough concern and fears about it that they've told a lot of other people, and now you've got a lot of people that have this concern. So if you can get ahead of it and get that type of feedback and knock out those concerns, makes your projects a lot easier.
What role do partnerships with local organizations play in your work?
I think a lot. I think for looking at local government, you can't really ever do anything on your own. There's certain things you can do on your own, of course, but when it comes to looking at how, an example would be, how do you address the unhoused? That's not something that as a city we can necessarily handle. We don't have the type of workforce to be able to handle that, or facilities. So having partnerships to be able to handle, especially items like that, amongst others, takes other partnerships out in the community to be able to really address that. If we don't have that as a partnership, what do we do? Because again, we don't have facilities, we don't have the capabilities to really address that as an overall issue. So I think whenever we're looking at things of that nature, then having partnerships and my personal belief would be, have as many partnerships as you can have. You get to know as many people as you can possibly know, because you never know when you're going to need to call on somebody for whatever that service or whatever it may be, and you want to have an open door to where they can call on you as well. So I always believe in building as many partnerships as humanly possible, because that's how you get goals accomplished, is working together and not trying to separately start your own thing that somebody else is already doing. When you don't need to, because again, if you can simply partner with somebody and it's a force multiplier versus trying to do it yourself, to where you're trying to figure things out, you're trying to understand how to even do it. You might not even know how to do it. Now you have to hire somebody to help you understand how to do it, and it takes you down this road that is highly inefficient. So I think partnerships with local organizations is a key to any government, if you're looking to accomplish certain goals.
So, how do you ensure underserved voices are heard in civic processes?
I think that when you try to direct some of the getting the feedback, you have to really look at how you're getting feedback and who you're getting feedback from. Sometimes you have your regulars that are always going to give you responses and always going to show up to a meeting, or whatever the open house may be, or whatever your feedback forum is. But I think you really have to try to push to get feedback from those that you don't typically hear from. And I know that can be challenging in some ways, because sometimes people don't necessarily want to come out and give feedback publicly. But if you can even take the time to have smaller forums to where you can be one-on-one with some of those people, and especially in underserved communities, because I think sometimes historically you'll see underserved communities don't always come out for those civic portions of the day. They're not always feeling like because number one, they already feel like they're not going to be heard anyway. So then they don't come out, and now they're for sure not heard. So you do have to really reach out to those areas. And if you can find like a local champion that's sort of in that specific community, is a really good way to do that. And even though you might only be, for us, talking to one specific person, they're kind of the person that's getting the community feedback. So they're doing a little bit of the legwork for you, but then they're able to come back and say, well, I've talked to this neighborhood, or I talked to this street, and this is what they're saying. So I think those are some more creative ways to be able to help yourself get that feedback is really finding those champions of those communities that are willing to speak up, and aren't afraid to interact with us, and not afraid to come to a meeting, or they're not afraid to call us. Um, I think those can be really important things to really have to when it comes to the underserved.
Well, sometimes within those communities also, like a lot of announcements like you're talking about, like when you have those public forums, a
Yeah,
lot of those people don't even get those advertisements.
yeah,
So they don't even know that they even exist.
yeah.
So, I know now that's where I can understand where it may take a little extra to maybe get that push out there to actually find out why we're not hearing from this pocket. If
Mhm.
that situation arises, what could you do or how could you rectify that situation?
I think you have to meet them where they are, because you can do all the Facebook posts and LinkedIn posts and this that posts under the sun, but also too, some of those people might not have those, and especially when you're getting maybe to an older to an aging population, then they might tell you, I don't have any Facebook. So you have to really try to meet people where they are, and if it's a community center within their neighborhood, or kind of that spot. I think still every neighborhood still kind of has that spot, that is where everybody goes to, or they interact with, or they can get information out. So I think a lot of those times you really have to just meet people where they are, literally in that sense, too. Because if you don't, then you'll never see them or hear from them. It can't just be a simple Facebook post or something that may or may not get to them. Not everybody even might check Facebook or whatever the case on a daily basis.
Mhm.
So you don't want to count on them getting to it after a while, or missing whatever the opportunity is. So I think a lot of those times that's how you have to do it, is find that place that you're going to come in contact with them, to make sure that you're getting information there, or at least making the best effort to get information. You can't always reach every single person, but I think also to even going down to individual flyers, when you're getting some of those neighborhoods to go to a house. And I know that's a little more old school, and the door hangers and things like that, but that can still be an effective method, because even if they don't check their mail on a regular basis, you open your door. You
Yeah.
open your door every day. So I mean, if you at least have something on your door, you'll probably look at it. Sometimes people can just toss those, but again, you're just trying to make a best effort to be able to do it. It doesn't always guarantee 100% success.
Let's move over to your work in leadership and innovation. How has your consulting experience shaped your leadership in Tucker?
Yeah, I think the great thing about consulting is that you're outside looking in. Sometimes when you're on the inside and you're working in a municipality, you're here every day, so you don't always see some of your inefficiencies, or some of the things that maybe need to be there. You try to pull yourself back, but of course, for certain roles, the course of your day to day grind sometimes makes it to where, look, you're just trying to kind of get through your day, versus whenever you're in consulting. In that case, I'm on the outside. I'm looking at your business, how you run things. Are there things that, through interviews with other staff, that they have an issue with? And I think taking that and sort of trying to move that over to my day to day life, being back in the office and being back in municipality, is key, because at least it gives a good indicator of how to really approach interviewing staff. And it's not a formal interview. I don't just grab everybody and sit them down and say, well, hey, what is everything working in your job? It's just really about building those relationships, and having the conversations just throughout the course of days, just as I'm throughout the building, just to understand, are they running into challenges, and what that does mean for them. If it does take a further meeting with people, then we can easily do that. But I think consulting really gives you the opportunity to understand how to pull yourself a little bit out of the overall operation, and lift yourself above, to try to look and see what's going on, and understand how to identify problems. So if you can understand at least how to identify problems, then that's usually the key. And the first big step is understanding that you have a problem, identify it, and then come up with a plan to fix it.
So, what innovations are you most proud of implementing?
Applications. I think for me, going back to my time as county manager, I think the big things was making them digital in a lot of aspects. When I got there, of course, we were still doing paper timesheets. So to do paper timesheets every 2 weeks for 174 employees, and then we had a monthly set of employees of 19 on top of that. So when you're doing that much paperwork, it's a little time consuming. So that was something that I think was huge for me, was whenever I was able to get us within my first year transitioned over to a digital format, to where it took us about 4 days to process payroll, to that shifted to taking us about a half day. One big thing. Also, too, with our planning and zoning, there was also paper. So it was a very challenging method to do it, because if you were submitting any type of application for zoning or whatever type of permitting, you had to physically come in our office and hand us your paperwork. We had to thumb through your paperwork, make sure, number one, you had everything. If there were errors, we got to stop. We got to come over here and say, hey, this is what you're missing. This is what you got to do for this, that, and the other. So we went also to a digital format with that. That was a longer process, because that took us about 2 years to get that implemented. But once we were able to do that, the amount of time that it freed for staff, because now instead of having to flip through pages to find things and approve things, they can just look on a screen, click a button that something's approved, get inspections scheduled right there on the screen, and not need to thumb through paper or go through files with the volume of paperwork. So I think those were the big innovative things that we did there, especially from a digital perspective, that helped the county, saved a lot of time, made us so much more efficient. Because instead of all that time wasted going through paper, or paper gets lost and they got to call somebody back in, all those type of things that were happening, or even with the timesheets, as an example, the worst thing you can have when people turn in the timesheets is people's handwriting. To where and there were times where that happened, to where somebody's turning a timesheet, and I'm trying my best to go through and look at it and say, like, what in the world does this say? Or I can't even read their name. So those challenges have to then track down the supervisor to say, hey, I think I've got all these people. Who is this one person that I'm missing, and what does it say? So a lot of challenges that you have with that. But whenever you're able to put things in place, especially in a digital perspective that people weren't used to, and especially that kind of volume, because 174 employees every 2 weeks is a lot. If I had hair at that time, I would have lost it for sure. So I think those are the big things we were able to implement that really changed the outlook for how the county ran.
How do you foster a culture of accountability within city departments?
I think a lot of that is setting expectations, and following up on those expectations. It can't just be everybody just runs willy-nilly and everybody just does whatever they do on a day-to-day basis. We have to have goals that we're trying to attain. And they can be simple. It doesn't have to be complicated necessarily, but I think whenever you, number one, set goals and set those expectations of when goals are to be met, and you follow up with what those are, I think you really build a culture of accountability. But you also build a culture where people really look to how can they improve. Sometimes when you don't have accountability, then it kind of doesn't matter if I don't complete this. What's going to happen? It doesn't really matter. But when you are accountable, then people start really taking it on themselves. I believe in that kind of culture. To how can I now improve the things I'm doing? How can I make my job even better? How can I make my department better? And I think when you build the right type of culture, then when you build it through accountability, that really gets that instilled in everybody.
So, what does cross department collaboration look like in practice?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're pretty much always going to need each other. So I think, especially when you look at projects, there's a lot of collaboration that goes into a project. You could probably honestly take almost any project that we have. You're going to have the engineering department that needs to develop designs. You can have the public works department that is managing the construction, and they're also usually maintaining on the back end. You're going to have your planning and zoning department that's issuing the permits, because as a city, we're still going to issue our own permits for us. on whatever project we're doing. So we still go through the same permitting process that anybody would go through. Because we aren't going to force everybody else to do it and not hold ourselves to that standard. So you're going to have planning and zoning that's involved in that as well. You have your communications department that is getting the message out about what's going on or what the completed project is, or pictures that show the progress, and also the website to keep track of that. So I think and then you of course have finance that has to pay for it. So you have so many people that have to be involved in every single project, because you can't take it from start to finish or even from a quarter of a way to the halfway mark without involving yourself with another department to understand how things are done, and to accomplish any aspect of that. So it's a lot of engagement, I think, on every single project that comes through us, that you have to really be involved with other departments and work together to find whatever the solution may be. There's going to be challenges, of course, with any of those, but finding a way through those challenges is very important.
So, how do you measure success in municipal operations?
I think success in the municipalities is always judged by are people constantly complaining about what we do? It can be a real thing. If you're in situations to where you're constantly getting a call from your council people or from a resident that's saying, "Man, I never get my trash picked up. I never get this. My road's always torn up. This is an issue. This is an issue. This is an issue." Then you have to kind of look at what your processes are and are we doing all the right things, versus you might not always get a lot of the calls of, "Man, y'all did a really great job on repaving my road." You might not get the call on, "Man, my trash has been picked up on time every single week this year." You're probably not going to get those calls. But at the end of the day, if you're not getting any calls about it, it usually can be a really good sign. You do get some people that do call and thank you for things, and sometimes I think it can be thankless, and I think that's okay. But I think whenever you do kind of eliminate people needing to call or feeling like they need to call because they can't trust that something's going to be done, that's usually when you're in the sign of trouble.
Let's go to your future plans and legacy. What's your vision for Tucker 5 years from now?
Ooh, 5 years, that's a long time from now. I think that when I think about 5 years, I think we're about to see a lot of major growth in the metro area. Because, of course, with so many events coming to Atlanta, we always have an event. We'll have the Super Bowl in a couple years. We'll have the World Cup next year, so on and so forth. So many big events that really attract people to make people want to live in Atlanta. There's only so many places you can go and live in Atlanta or in the metro area. So I think for Tucker, I think as we're growing, there's going to be a level of housing growth that's going to be there to accommodate a certain volume. Of course, we're not taking all the people that are coming, but I think we're going to have something that's really going to be attractive for people to want to come to Tucker and say that that's the place that I want to be. I think as we continue to build the downtown, I think it's really a spot that people are going to look at and say, I don't have to look for something to do on a Friday night. Like Friday night, this is what the city's doing. These are the type of events that they're having. That's where I'm going because that's the place to be. You can kind of see that with certain places. Stockbridge has a concert arena, other places that have those kind of things, Wolf Creek Arena, amphitheater. You have those kind of things that really draw somebody in. And I see in 5 years for sure, Tucker being a place that's what you say is like, "Hey man, we're going to Tucker Friday because we have these things to do, and this is the place that we need to be." But then with having the trails that are built out, but we can also walk there. So I think these are a lot of the big things that I see for us that we're really working towards, and being a city that people want to be in. I think hopefully in 5 years, the big issue is maybe we don't even have enough housing for the volume of people that really want to be here. So I think those can be some good problems to have, but then you can really be selective at that point because you have such demand that everybody's knocking down your door to be your developers as well, and you can be selective about how you really get things done So I think that's going to be the exciting thing for the city in 5 years is how we look and how people then view us.
How do you prepare the city for future challenges like climate or tech shifts?
Yeah, I think especially when you're talking about climate, I think that's a lot more collaboration through the county. They have a lot more resources than we do to be able to address those. But I think it's something that we do have to look at, and how probably primarily for climate for us is the how we do things. Are there things that are a little bit more environmentally friendly that we can do as we're either building a facility, as we're doing any type of infrastructure, any type of projects? Are the things that are going to be beneficial for the climate for us in that aspect? I think as far as working with the county, we have a great relationship with the county to be able to do those things and make sure that we are really addressing those. And what was the second part of that?
Um,
Climate and one other.
it's tech shifts.
Oh, tech shifts, yeah. And I think with tech is really looking at how are we prepared for the next thing? Because there's always kind of a next thing when you get to tech, and I think right now, kind of your next thing is AI.
Right.
So how do you handle AI? Something that I know we were looking at when I was in consulting was, do people need to develop an AI policy? Of some form, because ChatGPT is the most popular thing out there, and you get some people that they don't even try to write anymore. They just throw it in ChatGPT, and how do you evaluate that? And are there disclaimers as a company that we need to say this is generated by AI? So I think as we're looking at the evolution of how if even a ChatGPT or AI in general, what are policies that are pertaining to that, since that's kind of the most pressing thing, and you make your policies that build that out so that people are taking advantage of it or having opportunities to creating AI generated things and then trying to put that on our social media, because that can also be misleading. Somebody could easily think that, well, hey, I generated this AI city hall, that people are going to and put it on there and say, well, this is what the city's going to be building in 3 years. Can be very easy things to do. So I think it really is a lot about policy whenever you come to that, and just making sure that we're trying to be as far in front of them as you can. Like I said, tech does shift in certain ways very, very quickly. And we have a great IT department that does try to keep track of these things to make sure that we are shifting or protecting ourselves. The other big tech shift that I think's been there for the last maybe 5 years, especially, is people trying to hack and steal information from a city to then sell it back to you. And so, with having the protections that you need, is making sure that you have the protection. Don't wait until you get hacked to then think you need to get the protection. You better get the protection now, or somebody's going to be waiting there, trying to find the loophole to get into your system and take your information, and they'll be on the phone waiting to tell you how many millions of dollars that they're okay with taking to give it back to you. So I think those are the big things when it comes to the tech side of that, is try to stay in front of whatever challenges may come from whatever that next tech issue is.
What legacy do you hope to leave in Tucker?
I think that legacy in Tucker for me is really seeing those tangible things that I was able to work towards. Shorter time being here, but I think jumping back to the county, whenever people see me, or when I go back to visit, or when I'm talking to people, I think legacy is strongly about those things that you did, like mentioning the fire training facility. That's something that's strongly attached to me, or when people think about having a county fair, then things that are strongly attached to me, and being willing to go out on a limb and do those things. So I want that same type of feel to come from Tucker and how we do things, and really start those processes that put things in place that people are going to enjoy. And no, I know people aren't going to necessarily go to any event and think, wow, let me first think about Derrick, because he's the person that first mentioned this. But I think I find joy in being able to do those things, just knowing that maybe it was an idea that I came up with, even if nobody else even knows that, to then go through and say that that was something I worked on and something that I developed. so that I'm happy with being able to do that.
How do you mentor the next generation of civic leaders?
Yeah, and it's something I try to do a lot of right now, but I think really it's about taking people and giving them good understanding of how to navigate through being within municipalities. There's a lot of politics, of course, that come in with being in government, and even more so when you work at the county level. But to be at the city level, I think it's really about identifying what people want to do in their career and helping them try to find those pathways to get there. So no matter what level they are, it's really important to make sure that that if they say they want to be an assistant city manager or a city manager, well, depending on where you are now, let's make a plan of a map of how you get to that level. What are the next steps you need to take that are going to help you get closer to that goal? It might not be a tomorrow goal, but it might be a next couple of years goal of things that you need to do to get yourself better positioned to be in those. But I do love being able to mentor and being able to help people with navigating through government. I've got what I think 3 people that are in city or county management that work for me right now. And trying to increase that number because I love seeing good people in working in government and doing great things for us. So I try to make myself as available as humanly possible to really show them my path. And I tell them my path can be unique from their path, but just make sure that they know that there is a path for them. We just have to find it.
So, what does resilience mean for a city like Tucker?
I think of being able to withstand any and all things that come. Whenever there's recessions, you have to be able to put things in place to make sure that the city can withstand that. I think even when you're getting to the physical resilience of a city, is making sure you have ways that if storms come, if huge things like that come, that we're just not stranded, we're not stuck, we don't need to call on somebody. So I think resilience is a lot about your self sufficiency and making sure that you can operate and handle yourself. It can be fine to need to call for help. That's not an issue. But you want to kind of start within yourself to make sure you've done everything humanly possible that you can withstand whatever storm or battle may come. And if you do need at that point to call on people for help because you've done everything you can and still not able to handle it, then I think that can be okay. But put yourself in the best position possible to be successful. And I think that's what Tucker does right now.
So we also discussed, Black history because we do Black History 365.
Yeah.
And I asked you, who were the most influential person or persons in your life and career? You told me that was Thurgood Marshall and Jackie Robinson. Why are Thurgood Marshall and Jackie Robinson the most influential figures in your life?
Yeah, I think kind of starting with Jackie, then you look at what Jackie had to endure, and I know some of those are a little bit older than myself, so a different generation. But history repeats itself,
Very relevant.
and we have to really think about where we came from. So I think when you look at Jackie and being the first Black player to play baseball, professional baseball, in an all-white league, that I look at the things that I've done throughout my career and just, of course, not as tough as what he had to go through, but I think about the resilience and toughness that you have to withstand those. Growing up in the town I grew up in, I was the first Black to be to be hired within the Parks and Recreation Department. Then all the way coming to being at City of Lawrenceville, I was the first ever budget officer they had. To then go into Franklin County to where I was the first Black county manager they ever had. And I think really as you go through those, I just admire Jackie for the things he was able to put up with, the resilience. Of course, they're not apples and apples comparing those, but just understanding what he had to sacrifice, how he had to sacrifice to be able, and was still so successful in doing all the things that he did. So I think I look at that for him. I think for Thurgood Marshall, you have somebody that really put himself on the line to always fight for others. And I think that's an important aspect when it comes to being in public services. Again, we kind of talked about underserved communities and people in that nature. Well, you have to still fight for them too. And in that case for Thurgood, when he was coming up, then the underserved community was all black people. So he was fighting for them to get them their rights and whatever that case may be. He was trying to make sure that they were treated equally under the law. So I really admire that. I'll add a third one to that of looking at former President Obama. I think that it takes just a lot of courage again to be the first of anything. But I think with President Obama, then being able to go in, be successful, to be able to go through and fight through all the things that he had to fight through, and still come out of that having been successful and going on to do a lot of great things for the country. I think those are really important things that I have to admire from him. I'll throw in a bonus one of just my parents, of course, and my family, just because they're the ones that kind of taught me all these things, coming from the generation they came from. Of course, coming from farming families too, growing up in the South. Growing up in the 50s and 60s, then a very hard time to be able to come up in the country. And, it builds a certain level of toughness that I think they passed down to me, because at that time, just, you couldn't do a lot of things. It was very tough and you just couldn't do a lot of things, but they always taught me, even their parents, that I spent a lot of time with too, to always walk with my head held high and do the best that I can. And be proud of that. So, so I have to look up to the family as well, just because there's so many things that they taught me as I came up through the world, and that I hold on to and make sure that I try to implement in my life.
So, how have their legacy shaped your approach to leadership?
I think for especially my dad, because my dad was in management as well, so he was finished his career as plant manager for Goodyear. So I think, especially for him, being able to be tough, I think was probably how it started for me. I think I've evolved over those years, just because the workforce has changed, even from the time that I entered the workforce. It was a little tougher back in the '90s and so on and so forth. But I think I think he gave me the toughness to be able to do the job at a high level. Because when you're in those type of roles and you have to lay off 400 to 600 people every year, it's not a fun thing to do. But I think being able to be tough, and it could be maybe just being firm, is how it translated to me, and accountable. But I think too, for my mom and for my grandparents, the evolution of kind of softening myself to a degree of being more caring, trying to be empathetic to everybody, and walk in everybody's shoes, because you don't know what people are going through on a day-to-day basis. I think really for them, just translating to me of relating to people, because I think I do always firmly believe, if you know about your staff and you know about your employees, you can always tell when they're having just an off day that's out of character. It's not a normal thing for them. So really, that's been the big things legacy-wise that have translated for me.
So, what lessons from their lives do you apply in your civic work?
I think for lessons applied, then I think discipline is probably a big one. My mom was a school teacher for 27 years. So definitely discipline, because when you're teaching, she taught a lot of third grade, second, third grade, and seventh, eighth grade throughout her career. I think that you have to be disciplined to be in those fields, because when you're teaching a lot of young kids that maybe don't want to listen to you some days, that can drive you a little crazy. I think for what Dad was able to teach me was also discipline too. So I think that's been something that's very strong within me, is just trying to be disciplined to make sure that I'm always going to follow through with the things that I say I'm going to do. So that's what Dad always would say: if you say you're going to do it, do it. And make sure you stay firm behind your word. I think the biggest compliment I ever had was when I was at the county. Was different place, and a lot of people can be disagreeable towards some things, but I had somebody that probably really didn't care for me a whole lot, but he even told one of our commissioners that he might not agree with me, but I'm a man of my word. So I think that was very important, to make sure that you always follow through with what you say you're going to do.
How do you honor Black history in your role as a public servant?
I think biggest key to it is really striving for excellence. Whenever we're looking at Black history and the things that come with that, there's always that opportunity that there's not another one of us that gets that role if we're not doing the things that we're supposed to do. So I think the biggest thing I can do to honor Black history every day is really come in and perform at the highest level humanly possible. Because if you don't, then that's just giving people a reason to say why they don't need to hire that Black person or look at them. And so you don't ever want to give a reason. You always want to come in and perform at the highest possible level so that if they can still always have that as a reason, but don't give them reasons freely. Make them work for it if they got to find a reason.
And so, what does representation mean to you in government leadership?
I think that representation, it can't just be there's that one spec whenever you go to a government. I think if you're really searching for diversity within your government, you can do things to help yourself find diversity. I think whenever I look at it, seeing familiar type of faces whenever you're going to those leadership type conferences, I think is really important. And it not just be just the per se Black cities. I don't think that could be a fair way of saying that, oh yeah, there's a lot of representation here. It's because, well, X city that's 80% Black has a Black manager. That's not a key to representation. I think whenever we look at it and say that, there's a variety of people that have held the job over the years, then I think that could be a lot about the representation, because at least there's a willingness to hire different people than what they normally hire. And I know they kind of say it just like in sports, that a lot of owners will hire somebody that they're comfortable with and who kind of looks like them, so on and so forth. But I think in government, we have to venture beyond that and be willing to hire people that we just know can do the best job. And there's a lot of talented people out there, people of color out there that can do this job, and women too. So they just haven't always had a chance.
The final section here. This has been a wonderful interview, and I want to thank you before time, because I think really as working and having some city officials or public servants that's come on this show, I want to tell you that you all have been totally transparent.
Good.
But I got to say, by far, this is really a beautiful interview that
Good.
I'm hoping that your constituents or your people in Tucker really need to see this interview.
Good. No, thank you. Thank you.
So final part here, reflections and advice. What's the most challenging decision you've had to make in public service?
Challenging. I think whenever you have to make the decisions that are negatively going to impact the staff, whenever you have to make decisions that people are going to be laid off, furloughed, or however we want to put it, I think that's been the hardest thing because we don't have the funding to be able to do that. I won't get too specific to that, but just sort of, I think those are the biggest challenges when it has a huge negative impact to the staff. I think that I always try to put the staff first, as far as my day, because it doesn't mean that I'm not committed to the citizens, but the staff I'm with every single day. You spend a lot of time. You're spending 8 hours at least with the staff every single day, so it's just a different relationship than even for the constituents. So I've always found that to be the toughest thing to be able to do, is when we have to make that hard decision to say that we're just no longer going to be able to have staff for those reasons, because now it's something that's completely out of everybody's control. Versus somebody who messes up or does something bad where they're getting fired. They know it too, so you're separating from them, and everybody kind of knows that. But when it's a financial decision, they didn't do anything wrong, and nobody's done anything wrong necessarily. So that, I think, is the toughest thing, is to have to do that because they didn't do anything to earn that decision.
What advice would you give to someone entering municipal leadership today?
I think really take advantage of all the trainings you can put your hands on. Um, it doesn't have to necessarily be in their exact field. I think taking opportunity, if they can, learn about all the departments, get an understanding as much as you possibly can about any and all departments, because the more you know, especially as you are climbing to this level, then it makes it a lot easier to manage when you know something about it. I was fortunate in a couple of the prior places that I was located that even before I got into management, that they allowed me to kind of go and meet with other departments, shadow other departments, get an opportunity to learn those things. So it helped me tremendously, because then as I did advance to leadership, then when people are telling me things or giving me that information, I understand what they're saying. It's not now foreign that I need to go back and understand. I completely understand what you're talking about at this point. So I think really getting knowledge of the departments, and also really getting the training. But then I would third say is really finding what it is that you want to do. What is the end goal? It can be to be a director of a department. It can be to be in management. But what is your end goal? Because that dictates a lot of those steps in between where you are now to where you're going to go. So if you know where you want to go, we can always make a plan. But if you're just kind of out there in the wind trying to see what happens, then it can be kind of difficult.
How do you stay grounded and motivated in your work?
I try to keep myself very humble to understand that number one, anybody can always come and replace me. That I am not the only person that can do this. I'm not the savior that can fix all problems. I need people. I need people to help me, and so always understanding that without having a great staff like we do to be able to help accomplish a lot of these goals and translate the things that I'm relaying, that I'm just a guy that's in an office saying stuff. So I think it's so I think it's really important to really understand that maybe rank and title wise, maybe people think of me as being up here, but at the end of the day, I'm really a little bit lower, because I still need so many people and can't do these things on my own. So just being grateful to have people that work so hard and just knock out projects and knock out all these things that we come up with. And my little bit of input to be able to help them get to that end result. I'm just grateful to be able to be a part of those processes.
What's one thing you wish more people understood about city management?
I think understanding that you are expected to know everything. You need to know everything. I think that people sometimes don't understand what we do, and just kind of understand that we're there in an office, and maybe we're part of how their trash gets collected, or maybe they just think we're part of that budget process. But I think that it's so all encompassing to the things that you need to understand and know within city management, that I think people don't have an idea that of how much it really takes and how much understanding it really takes to be successful in it. It's not just know this one little thing and go about your business. You need to really have skilled people in these type of roles, and even though it always is fun to think that if you get rid of a city manager, that the next one's going to be the next great thing, I think people just have to understand that it is a heavily taxing role that takes a lot of knowledge and a lot of dedication.
Final question. What does America in Black and White mean to you personally?
I think it's an opportunity for a platform to really pursue Black excellence. I think a lot of people don't get to hear a lot of these stories just on a regular basis. I, of course, went back and watched a couple episodes myself, and I think that whenever I look at it, it's opportunity to really highlight what we are actually doing out there. People don't know these things just generally. So I think being within these kind of environments and these kind of platforms just gives so much opportunity for someone to look and say, hey, I can do that too. Because when we don't see these things in action of people that look like us, then yes, it can be possible. It's true, it can be possible. But when you see somebody saying it and, oh man, that's what I've been wanting to do, that's what I've been talking about doing, then that's a great feeling to be able to be a part of that. And even for the people on the flip side of that, that maybe they didn't know that's what they want to do, but then they hear about some of those stories, and now it's like, man, actually, that sounds like something that kind of is right up my alley. It's an opportunity. So I think I look at American Black and White as opportunity, an opportunity for success. So again, if you don't see yourself doing it, you may or may not really have interest.
Right. I want to thank you for that. And so, in closing, what are some words of wisdom and encouragement can we get you to leave for the audience? You know, how to connect with you on your socials. Maybe they can come to one of your websites. What are some of those things you'd like for them to know?
Yeah, absolutely. So they can typically find me at Derrick Turner 29 on most social media. I think that advice for people is never give up on your dreams. It's never too late to start, and you're never finished until you're no longer breathing. So you always have opportunity. It's like Trey Young with basketball here says, "Another day, another opportunity." So as long as you have another day, you got another opportunity. Other things for me is actually I have a podcast of my own coming out with my wife. That's going to be releasing in January. 10 years apart, one heart. So we're going to be releasing a preview episode here, just a little short snippet here within the next month, with a release date coming in January. So be on the lookout for that. But I think that it's a great opportunity. Hopefully, everybody that's had a chance to look at this really takes something from that and gets a little better understanding of municipal government. And also for myself, that I do want to thank you for having me on and that opportunity that we were able to connect.
Yes, sir. Well, I definitely want. We definitely need to have you back in season 4, which is next season. We definitely got to have you back.
Okay.
I want to appreciate you for taking the time to do this interview because, again, as you mentioned, you know, it's one of those things that I think people need to know who the real heroes are
Mhm.
because so many folk are caught up on the big advertisements of what they see every
Yeah.
day on the
Right.
constant, you know, they see it like 100 times a day and like, oh, that's what's going on.
Right.
That's not really where it's at. Because if we talk about the real meats and potatoes, it's the
Yep.
work that you're doing that's actually building a solid foundation in the city to help the city to grow and to expand and to help its citizens as best as possible.
Absolutely.
That's what we're about. And I just want to tell you that you're more, I appreciate your humbleness. But,
Oh,
you know, I'm going to tell you that I think that you deserve a whole lot more credit than what you're giving yourself as well. Because the work that you're doing, believe me, is second to none. And it takes more of the meat and potatoes, more in the grind than people can imagine.
mhm.
So that work ain't just being done, oh, because you're just doing it. You got to not only assemble this great team to assist you in the
Mhm.
work that you do, but you also got to oversee that team. So
Yeah.
that team is successful in building you up to be successful, which means it's one unity. And
Absolutely.
so this is what you do, and this is why people need to know, hey, this is the man. This is the man. So all of y'all watching this, please make sure that you go and you check out Mr. Tucker's socials and you connect with him
Brilliant.
because, especially the people out in Tucker, if you're feeling
Yeah.
like your voice is not heard, please connect with him. Let him know what you're feeling and so forth. Because I can honestly tell you, being a new city is not
Mhm.
something that's going to be easy, but I can honestly say that you're on a great path. And that path, I see great movement in that
Oh, yeah.
trajectory. And so I
Absolutely.
appreciate you for spending this time with us. I appreciate each and every last one of you that's watching this show and has stayed the time and watched this show. I appreciate you for doing that. And
Absolutely.
this is what we're going to continue to offer you guys. And I want you to make sure that you come back because here at American Black and White, when we say we're building communities, we're definitely building communities and we are displaying that Black excellence.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you all for watching us tonight. Please come back and watch our great show tomorrow night. And we will continue to color these conversations on the canvas of America. I'm your host, Charles King. You guys have a great evening. Thank you, Derrick.